What's going on, guys? Trev back again here to bring you another video. This one's going to be talking about a zombie-related topic. So a lot of people have suggested, I can't mention just one name because a lot of people have asked for me to do this over the last little while. And basically it is, my opinion on what the top 10 or top 5. I'm going to stick with top 5 because there just aren't that many zombie movies. My top 5 favorite zombie movies, or also the ones that I think are the best. So let's get right into it. This is Trev's top 5 list for the top 5 best zombie movies. And by the way, of course, the Walking Dead TV show, had they have made a movie, for sure that'd be on here. If it's anywhere near as good as a TV show, it'd be #1 on the list because I think The Walking Dead is the best zombie story ever told, regardless of whether it's told in a comic book or a TV show, or if they had done a movie series like trilogy or 4 or 5 movies, it still probably would be the best in my opinion. Anyway, though, since it's not a movie, it won't be included on the list. Let's start at number 5. So number 5 is the Dawn of the Dead remake. So this was one of the ones with the fast zombies, where you got the you have the, I think she was a nurse, the blonde nurse, who starts off at her house there, and I think her boyfriend or husband or whatever gets turned, and then she ends up just like running away from him, and he's chasing after the car. She meets up with the other people. You've got the big cop guy and the guy with the brown hair, the white guy. He used to sell TVs at Best Buy, I think that's what he says, and they end up going into the mall and basically staying there for a while. And I think the story is really interesting. I think it could have, if it wasn't a movie, if it was like a comic book or something going on further than that, I'd have been interested to read into that, the Dawn of the Dead remake. I think it's done very well overall. My favorite parts of the movie, I like that they used Disturbed's Down with the Sickness, which is one of my favorite songs ever. And they used a remix of it, though, or a cover of it, though. I forget the guy's name. He's like a jazz or classical singer, whatever that's called, Tin Pan Alley type singer. And he does it he basically sings Down with the Sickness from Disturbed. And I used to love Disturbed, so that was a hilarious part. And you've got the guy across the street. I forget what his name is. He's got the signs where he's holding up the signs. And they're kind of seeing him through binoculars, and they're writing back and forth to each other. And then eventually, he dies and all that, and then they end up leaving the mall and that kind of stuff, just to sort of give the movie some kind of closure ending. And we're to assume at the end that I think 1 or 2 characters get away. I think the girl and I think the girl and one other guy, but I think we're to assume that even though they got away, they ended up dying eventually anyway. But it was a lot of fun. Another cool part in the Dawn of the Dead remake is you've got the big fat lady who, I think, does she give birth or something like that, or where she turns and, yeah, I forget exactly, but she turns and she's like running towards the guy. You just see this big fat, blob just running towards him. I thought that was a pretty funny part too. So that was a good one, really exciting. I think it's a nice modern take on the zombie genre, since a lot of the good zombie movies are kind of older. George A. Romero's are my favorite, and I'll get to those in a bit. But this one was really good for an early 2000s movie and kind of bringing back the genre, because it had been sort of like, people, like, they just weren't making zombie movies for a long time. So I think this definitely deserves to be on there. Do I prefer Fast Zombies? I did a video about that. I don't. But I still think that this was, even though there was Fast Zombies, it was a lot of fun. And I thought that it was... really, really good zombie movie. Definitely one that I could, review probably the whole movie itself, but I'd have to, watch it again and make notes and everything. Number 4, going on from there, number 4 is Night of the Living Dead. The original or the early 90s version, it doesn't really matter too much. I mean, they're pretty much exactly the same. I remember Night of the Living Dead was the first one I ever saw, the first zombie story or anything I'd ever experienced. And I just thought it was, like, I don't really like horror movies, but I just thought, like, some of them are okay, but I just thought that it was such a cool idea where they've got it, that they fortify the house, and then, everything that's happening with that, and then they end up leaving at the end. And of course, it's the first. So I think if you're going to make a list of top 5 zombie movies, how could you make it without the original? I mean, it was groundbreaking at the time. Looking back now, it's pretty simplistic, compared to what we see in The Walking Dead and stuff. But that's where it all started, Night of the Living Dead that was it, man. Great movie, a lot of fun. I just thought it was intriguing, exciting idea, the whole zombie apocalypse scenario. I mean, that was where it was really introduced. So definitely a great movie. The remake or the original, either one, doesn't really matter too much. They're both awesome movies. You know, a lot of people prefer the original over the remake, but then the remakes, I think it's in color, pretty sure. So you know, it doesn't matter too much. Either one, I think, is just as good. Maybe the original, just for the fact that it was the original. You probably want to watch that if you haven't seen it. Going on from there, number 3 is going to be 28 Days Later. I absolutely love 28 Days Later, and I'm going to do a review on that movie just by itself for sure, because I think that 28 Days Later is like the quintessential fast zombie movie, you know, where you have the running zombies. I love everything about this movie. I love the scenery. I love the shots of the city. You know, him walking out of the hospital, and you know, just having like a desolate city with him reading the paper and stuff. I love the part where he goes in the church and he starts talking to the pastor or priest or whatever, and he's like, "Father," and then he turns and he's, you know, and even the beginning with the monkeys where they're testing on them and they're creating like at Cambridge before, and people break in and you know, basically that's how the disease spreads. They were testing it with monkeys and they call it rage. And you know, that part is really cool. Then later on, seeing the whole you know, desolate, just, you know, where is it? Is it London or Cambridge? I forget exactly where it is, but you know, the city looks amazing. Some awesome shots. It's shot very artistically. Like the angles are very strange and it's really fast. Like the part after he leaves the church, he's like running, and then they're running after him, and then Celine, who's the black girl, she throws a Molotov cocktail, and the other guy they're with throw Molotov cocktails at them, and you know, then they light up on fire, and it's just, it's really exciting. It's really interesting. I just think it's a really scary zombie movie. It's probably the scariest zombie movie I think there really is. Compared, because the old George A. Romero zombie movies are not really that terrifying, but this movie is pretty scary. All the way up to the end and the change in the main character. I can't remember his name at the moment, but where he, you know, gets the guy down and then he jabs his so he just loses his humanity completely and all that. It's just, man, it's a great movie, and it's a movie that I think had a lot of an effect on The Walking Dead, you know, and the series and the way it is. I mean, if you look at the character of Celine, with, you know, she's African English, I guess you call it, and she uses, or British, and she uses the, is like a machete sword. A lot of similarities with Michonne from The Walking Dead, as well as the main character too, waking up in a hospital and then leaving, finding his parents dead, this kind of stuff. There are a lot of similarities between the story, even though Robert Kirkman, the writer of The Walking Dead, has said that it just happened that way. Sometimes great minds think alike type thing, and they just both had the same beginning, so to speak, waking up in a, you know, in a hospital type thing. I definitely like 28 Days Later. I think it's an awesome movie. It's scary, it's exciting, it's exhilarating, and it's definitely one of the coolest zombie movies. Some people try to say that it's not a zombie movie. It's a zombie movie. Okay, it is a zombie movie. It's just that instead of, you know, them being the zombies we're used to, it's fast zombies, rage they call it, but it's fast zombies really. And I like the fact that they're in a quarantine. I think that whole idea is just very interesting. The whole movie's done really well. 28 Days Later I didn't like as much, but or sorry, 28 Weeks Later. 28 Weeks Later I didn't like as much, but 28 Days Later I thought was awesome. Going on from that, number 2 is going to be Dawn of the Dead. So, and this is the original Dawn of the Dead, not the remake. The original Dawn of the Dead, I think, is an absolutely amazing movie. It's not scary per se, but it's just a lot of fun. It's pretty long too. I think it's like over 2 hours, like 2.5 hours or something. You know, they get in the mall. You've got some cool characters. You've got Flyboy and you know, the taller, was he a cop or security? I think he was a cop or military or something. The black guy, and then the other lighter skinned guy with the blonde hair, and the girl who's with Flyboy, going into the mall, staying there, using the trucks to fortify it and that kind of stuff, and then having sort of like the gang come in afterwards and just loot and raid the whole place and screw it up for them. I think that this movie is a lot of fun. It's like a comic book movie, they say. That's what a lot of people say, how they describe it. It's definitely a cult classic. And definitely one of my favorite movies for sure is the original Dawn of the Dead. Some people nowadays, because it is slower paced, they have trouble going back and watching it because it's older. But I think that it's really well done, and definitely everybody should probably watch it at least once. It's a lot of fun. It's a cool movie, and it took Night of the Living Dead and it gave it a good sequel. You know, a good sequel should be better than the original. And in this case, it actually was. And, you know, this was, I think, the most popular of all the Romero films is the original Dawn of the Dead. So it's an awesome movie. Definitely should check it out. That's number 2. So number 1, finally, is Day of the Dead, which a lot of people don't like too much, but I love it. It's my favorite zombie movie for sure. There's so many things about this movie, so many little interesting things. I definitely have to do a full review on Day of the Dead by itself, from the beginning of the movie, where we get to sort of, you know, see, and it's daytime, so it's the Day of the Dead. And, you know, they're kind of going around the helicopter, Sarah and a couple other characters, and they're, you know, using the loudspeaker, hello. I also love the theme in the background that plays when they're looking for people. And you see Dr. Tongue, which is my favorite zombie ever, by far ever. If you guys don't know who Dr. Tongue is, just go to Google, type in Dr. Tongue zombie, and you'll see it's the coolest design zombie ever, by far. And better than any zombie design in The Walking Dead or anything else. Basically what they did is they took off his lower jaw, I think, and he looks like a professor of like a university or something, and he's got like white hair. I actually have an action figure of him, and his tongue just hangs down. I'll grab the figure. One sec. Okay, sorry about that. So here is Dr. Tongue. This is a figure interpretation of him. But yeah, I think he's the coolest looking zombie ever. He's got the tongue that just hangs out. That's why it's called Dr. Tongue. And you know, he's just, I don't know, man. He looks like a lot of when I went to university, he looks like a lot of my professors, so, or some of them anyway. And I don't know, I just think that's the coolest design zombie ever. And he's actually just at the beginning of the film, you know, he just kind of walks out, looks around kind of at who's using the speaker, and then just starts walking. Anyway, so that's the first part. You get to see the nice opening with the nice, you know, I think it's like, where do they film, like California, Florida or something? Anyway, it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And then you see all these zombies start walking out in the daytime. And then after that, you know, you got the characters, they get in the helicopter, they go back, and they're staying in an underground bunker. And I think that's probably the reason why a lot of people didn't really like Day of the Dead as much, is because they're staying in a bunker underground, and it's not as fun as a shopping mall, okay? You know, the idea of being in a shopping mall, like in Dawn of the Dead, is a lot of fun, because, you know, you've got a whole mall here to just do whatever you want. These people are a lot more depressed because they're underground. You know, they can't really, like, leave. They've got a fence, but it's just like walkers or zombies are just, like, you know, up against the fence, like, the whole time. And they fly out of there, come back, go for runs, stuff like that. And it's kind of like an interesting story to me, because it's like, what would happen to the military if, you know, there was a zombie apocalypse, and basically they were, you know, the military was basically disbanded. Like, it was, you know, most of it was defeated by walkers, overcome, you know, ran out of ammo, this kind of stuff. But you would still have certain sections, certain groups of military outposts that probably wouldn't get overrun, at least not right away. And that's what Day of the Dead is. Day of the Dead is, and you can watch this on YouTube, by the way. It's posted. If you just type in YouTube, Day of the Dead Part 1, you can watch the whole movie on it. So I definitely recommend, you know, if you guys got some time in the weekend or whatever, Day of the Dead is, for me, I have to recommend it, number 1, above all the others. And it's got so many interesting psychological, you know, undertones to it that Romero put in there. And basically, to sum it all up, you have what's left of a little military outpost. You have a couple guys from the military there, and then you have scientists who are basically studying what's happening to the zombies, and if they can, you know, find a cure, or if they can do something about it. And the funny thing is actually what's happening is, even though the scientists are the good guys, and the military guys, and the leader of the military, the small, I shouldn't call it all military, but leader of their little group, who's keeping them safe and feeding them, basically, he basically is getting pissed off because it seems like they're just wasting his time. And the funny thing is that he's the bad guy, But the scientists are actually doing just that. They're just wasting their time. Because even if you find a cure or something like that, well, you can't reverse the process. They're already dead. You're not going to bring them back to life. That's like bringing a dead person back to life in real life. I mean, you just can't do it. It's not possible. So they really are just wasting their time. And before, sooner or later, like, they all kind of start getting depressed, and sooner or later everything goes to hell. You got some really interesting characters. One doctor's name's Dr. Frankenstein, and he's working on a zombie called Bub, which is probably most people's most memorable zombie of any, if they've seen this movie. And basically what Bub is Bub is a zombie that the doctor's been working with a lot, and the doctor has been able to train Bub, like you train a dog, a zombie, to do certain things. Like, he'll salute and stuff like this, because I think Bub was probably, before that in his life, was in the military or something like that. And the doctor will treat him after with, feeding him, human body parts and stuff or whatever to eat, after Bub the zombie does good things, and he will not attack the doctor. Like, Bub won't attack the doctor, so he's basically the most intelligent zombie there is. And there's just some really interesting stuff that goes on in the movie. Definitely, you should check it out. And they end up going at each other, and then the characters end up leaving right away, and they actually survive. The good characters actually do get away, and they end up making it to like a deserted island type place. And it's just there's so many interesting ideas, and the psychology behind it is equal to that of The Walking Dead, if not greater in some aspects. All the questions that are coming into, because you're supposed to like the doctors and what they're doing, but they're not actually doing anything useful. So there's a lot of interesting little things to it. And then with studying the zombies and all this kind of stuff is definitely a lot of fun. And my favorite, I think it's the best zombie movie. I know that a lot of average fans probably won't get into it as much, because they won't get all the psychological undertones. They won't get all the other ideas in there that are really, really interesting. That if you've watched The Walking Dead, if you've been into this stuff for a while, you'll kind of get it. You'll get these different ideas, and these movies are all awesome, but definitely the best of them all is number one for me, George A. Romero's Day of the Dead. It's older, but it's aged very well, and the zombie effects are probably the best. Like the gore and stuff, the effects are probably the best of any zombie movie ever, because they use practical effects. There's no CG, or at least I don't think there is, and they just do a really, really good job of it. It's just it's awesome. You definitely got to check out Day of the Dead. So that's it for my top 5 list. For some other honorable mentions, I really like Land of the Dead. For some ways, I like some of the zombie characters that have personalities. I think that's cool. I like Big Daddy, who's he's like a mechanic or something, but he's a zombie, so he remembers things from being a mechanic, and he's sort of like a smarter zombie too. So Land of the Dead is definitely one that's close to my list. I'd probably put it around number 6, 7, or 8, something like that. 28 Weeks Later is okay. I think it's pretty good. It's not too bad. What else we got? I mean, there's others, but in my opinion, these ones are probably the most notable and best. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. To go over one more time, my number 5 is Dawn of the Dead, the remake from the 2000s. Night of the Living Dead, number 4. Number 3, 28 Days Later. Number 2, the original Dawn of the Dead, and number 1, Day of the Dead. That's Trev's top 5 favorite zombie movies. Later, guys. Peace.